The psychological toll of this pursuit was immense. The constant pressure to conform to societal beauty standards, to achieve a head of hair that was both voluminous and lustrous, must have weighed heavily on Victorian men and women. Hair was often seen as a symbol of vitality, youth, and attractiveness. Hair loss or thinning could be a source of profound embarrassment and shame, driving individuals to desperate measures. They would endure the discomfort, the itching, the burning sensations, and the very real risks, all for the sake of conforming to a beauty standard that demanded an unnatural perfection from their hair. It was a silent, internal struggle, a constant battle against their own natural biology and the insidious poisons they willingly applied. So, as you drift deeper into the comfortable hum of the night, reflect on the terrible history of Victorian beauty treatments, particularly the pursuit of the perfect figure through corsets and dangerous concoctions. It was an era where the desire for an impossible silhouette led to the crushing of internal organs and the ingestion of parasites and poisons, all in the name of societal expectation and an often unreachable standard. It's a chilling reminder that beauty standards, when taken to extremes, can be truly dangerous, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is simply healthy with your own natural shape. Sweet dreams, and may your own figure always be celebrated for its natural beauty and vitality. You find yourself transported to a time when outward appearance was paramount, a reflection of your social standing, your virtue, and your very essence. For Victorian women, in particular, beauty was not just an aesthetic pursuit, it was a societal obligation, a silent language spoken through delicate features, a glowing complexion, and a meticulously styled coiffure. But the standards of beauty were often unattainable, and the methods used to achieve them were, to put it mildly, quite alarming. You've just escaped the crushing embrace of the corset and the horrifying thought of tapeworm eggs, emerging from a world where the pursuit of the perfect figure could lead to organ damage and parasitic guests. You've glimpsed the terrifying lengths to which Victorian women would go to conform to an impossible ideal. But as the 19th century drew to a close and the dawn of the 20th century began to glimmer, a new, even more insidious promise of beauty emerged. One that blended scientific discovery with terrifying naivete, the allure of eternal youth, powered by the invisible, yet deadly glow of radium. Imagine, if you will, that to achieve a youthful glow, you would willingly apply a radioactive element to your face, believing it to be a miracle cure. Imagine flipping through a fashion magazine of the era, perhaps Godey's Ladies Book or Peterson's magazine. You'd see illustrations of women with impossibly tiny waists, voluminous skirts, and faces of ethereal paleness. The ideal complexion was not a sun-kissed glow, but a delicate, almost translucent white, a stark contrast to the ruddy faces of those who toiled outdoors. This wasn't just a preference, it was a class marker. A pale complexion signified leisure, wealth, and a life free from manual labor. A tanned face, on the other hand, hinted at a lower social status, a life spent in the sun. So the pursuit of paleness became an obsession, a silent battle against the sun's natural embrace. You find yourself in a new era, one where scientific breakthroughs are celebrated and the wonders of electricity and X-rays are transforming the world. The air is still thick with the scent of gas lamps and horse-drawn carriages, but there's a new hum, an excited buzz about progress and discovery. You pick up a newspaper, or perhaps a ladies' magazine, and your eyes are immediately drawn to advertisements promising not just pale skin or lush hair, but something far more enticing: eternal youth. The ideal Victorian beauty, though still valuing paleness, now also craved a radiant, youthful glow, a vitality that seemed to defy the natural aging process. The discovery of radium by Marie and Pierre Curie in 1898 had captivated the world, its mysterious glow and seemingly miraculous properties sparking a fascination that quickly bled into the beauty industry. This is where the truly terrifying treatments begin. You might find yourself in a dimly lit boudoir, perhaps with a maid assisting you, as you prepare for your daily beauty regimen. The air might be thick with the scent of powders, perfumes, and something else, something faintly acrid or metallic. Because to achieve that coveted ghostly pallor, many Victorian women turned to remedies that were, quite literally, poisonous. This is where the truly terrifying treatments begin to glow. Quite literally. You might find yourself in a fashionable salon, or perhaps in your own boudoir, as you prepare for your daily beauty regimen. The air might be thick with the scent of powders, perfumes, and something else. Something faintly metallic or even a strange, almost imperceptible luminescence. Because to achieve that coveted youthful radiance, many Victorian and Edwardian women, as the era transitioned, turned to remedies that were quite literally radioactive. A common historical fact is that arsenic was a popular ingredient in Victorian beauty treatments, particularly in complexion wafers or pills. These small, seemingly innocuous tablets, often sold under alluring names like Arsenic Complexion Wafers or Dr. Mackenzie's Arsenic Wafers, promise to whiten the skin, clear blemishes, and give you that desirable ethereal glow. You would ingest these wafers daily, perhaps with your morning tea, believing you were enhancing your beauty. The immediate effects might even seem positive. Arsenic, in small doses, can indeed make the skin appear whiter by constricting blood vessels and causing a slight swelling that smooths out wrinkles. It's like a very dangerous, very slow-acting filter for your face. A common historical fact is that radium was marketed as a miracle ingredient in various beauty products during the early 20th century, promising anti-aging effects and a youthful glow. After its discovery, radium's unique property of emitting light radiance was misinterpreted as a sign of life-giving energy. Manufacturers quickly capitalized on this fascination, adding trace amounts of radium to creams, powders, tonics, and even toothpaste. These products were sold under alluring names like Radier Beauty Cream, Thoradia Radioactive Face Powder, or Revigator water jars, which claimed to make water radioactive. You would apply these creams to your face, perhaps massaging them into your skin with fervent hope, believing you were turning back the clock. It's like having a built-in youth filter, but instead of an app, it's a highly radioactive element. And instead of just looking good, you're also risking cellular damage and cancer. You'd be looking absolutely glowing in the most literal and terrifying sense. But the long-term effects were devastating. Arsenic is a potent poison. Chronic exposure could lead to a range of horrific symptoms: hair loss, brittle nails, skin lesions, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and eventually, organ damage and death. You might start to feel a persistent weakness, a dull ache in your joints, or a strange tingling in your fingers and toes. Your hair might begin to thin. Your nails might become discolored. But in an era with limited medical knowledge, these symptoms might be attributed to other ailments, or simply dismissed as minor inconveniences in the pursuit of beauty. It's like trying to achieve a perfect complexion by slowly poisoning yourself, and then wondering why you feel a bit under the weather. Talk about commitment to a beauty standard. The advertisements for these radium-infused products were incredibly persuasive, preying on the universal desire for youth and beauty. They promised to eliminate wrinkles, restore elasticity, and give the skin a fresh, youthful complexion. Some even claim to stimulate blood circulation and regenerate cells. The scientific community, still in its infancy regarding the understanding of radioactivity's dangers, often contributed to the public's naive enthusiasm. Marie Curie herself, though cautious about its medical applications, couldn't have foreseen the reckless commercialization of her discovery. It's like trusting a beauty influencer who's secretly selling you a product that gives you superpowers, but also a slow, agonizing death. Talk about a glow up with the dark side. Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about the pursuit of paleness, some Victorian women would deliberately consume chalk or plaster of Paris. This wasn't for its whitening properties directly, but because it was believed to suppress appetite and lead to a gaunt, sickly appearance, which was also considered fashionable, particularly for those suffering from consumption tuberculosis. The delicate, fragile look of a consumptive woman was tragically romanticized, and some women would go to extreme lengths to emulate it. Imagine deliberately eating chalk to look sickly chic. You'd probably end up with severe digestive issues, mineral deficiencies, and a very confused doctor. It's a bit like trying to achieve a heroin-chic look by actually developing a debilitating illness. Truly terrible. But the insidious nature of radium meant that the pursuit of this youthful glow came with a terrifying price. Radium is a highly radioactive element that emits alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. When applied to the skin or ingested, these radiations cause cellular damage, mutation, and eventually cancer. You might immediately feel a slight tingling sensation, or perhaps a warmth, which would be misinterpreted as the life-giving energy at work. But beneath the surface, the radiation was silently, relentlessly, destroying your cells. The obsession with paleness also extended to topical applications. You might apply creams and powders to your face that contained lead, mercury, or bismuth. These heavy metals, while providing a temporary whitening effect, were also highly toxic. Lead could cause lead poisoning, leading to neurological damage, abdominal pain, and a characteristic lead line on the gums. Mercury could cause skin discoloration, kidney damage, and neurological problems. Bismuth, while less toxic, could still cause skin irritation and other issues. You'd slather these concoctions onto your face, believing you were achieving perfection, while slowly absorbing poisons into your system. It's like using a very fancy, very expensive, and very poisonous foundation. As the radium was absorbed into your body, its systemic effects would begin to manifest. You might experience a persistent fatigue, unexplained weight loss, and a general malaise, often attributed to nervous complaints or overwork. Your teeth might begin to loosen. Your gums could become inflamed and prone to bleeding, a condition known as radium jaw. Your bones, particularly those of the jaw and spine, could become brittle and prone to fractures, as the radium, chemically similar to calcium, would be absorbed and stored in your skeletal system. Imagine trying to achieve eternal youth by slowly dissolving your own bones. Truly terrifying. The dangers of these treatments were often unknown or downplayed by the manufacturers, who were largely unregulated. Quack doctors and charlatans peddled these dangerous concoctions, promising miraculous results with no side effects. Advertising played a huge role, with alluring images of beautiful, pale women gracing newspapers and magazines, creating a powerful aspirational ideal. You'd see testimonials from seemingly satisfied customers, unaware of the insidious damage being done to their bodies. It's like trusting a beauty influencer who's secretly selling you poison, and then wondering why your skin looks so translucent. Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about radium beauty products, some manufacturers even incorporated radium into internal tonics, or elixirs, promising to rejuvenate the entire body from within. These liquid concoctions, often marketed as radioactive water or radium drinks, were consumed daily, believed to purify the blood, boost energy, and restore youthful vitality. One infamous product, Radithor, was essentially distilled water containing radium and mesothorium. Its creator, a quack doctor named William J. A. Bailey, claimed it could cure over 150 diseases and provide eternal youth. Imagine drinking a daily dose of radioactive water, believing it was your fountain of youth. You'd probably end up with severe internal bleeding, bone necrosis, and a very agonizing death. It's a bit like trying to achieve eternal youth by literally inviting a nuclear meltdown inside you. Truly horrifying. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the true prevalence of arsenic and lead poisoning from beauty treatments. Some scholars argue that while these ingredients were indeed used, the doses might have been relatively small and widespread. Acute poisoning was perhaps less common than sensationalized accounts suggest. They contend that many of the symptoms attributed to these treatments might have been due to other prevailing diseases of the era. Others argue that chronic, low-level exposure to these toxins would have had a cumulative and devastating effect on women's health, contributing to a range of unexplained illnesses and premature deaths that were not properly diagnosed at the time. It's like arguing whether your daily dose of questionable supplements is slowly killing you, or if it's just making your wallet lighter. The long-term effects are often harder to pinpoint. The long-term effects of radium exposure were devastating. Chronic exposure, whether through topical application or ingestion, led to a range of horrific cancers, including bone cancer, leukemia, and various carcinomas. The radiation would silently accumulate in the body, causing irreparable damage at a cellular level, often manifesting years or even decades after initial exposure. The victims, often unaware of the true cause of their suffering, would endure agonizing pain, disfigurement, and a slow, agonizing death. The irony, of course, it would be that the very substance they believed was granting them eternal youth was, in fact, accelerating their demise. You might also consider the psychological toll of this relentless pursuit of an impossible ideal. The constant pressure to conform to societal beauty standards, to achieve a ghostly pallor that was both unnatural and dangerous, must have been immense. Women would spend hours on their beauty routines, meticulously applying powders and creams, often in dim light, hoping to achieve that elusive perfection. The fear of appearing unfashionable or common would drive them to desperate measures, risking their health and sometimes their lives for the sake of appearance. The market for these dangerous radium beauty treatments was, like other Victorian beauty products, largely unregulated. Quack doctors, charlatans, and opportunistic entrepreneurs peddled these glowing concoctions with impunity, promising miraculous results with no side effects. Advertisements, featuring alluring illustrations of women with impossibly radiant, youthful complexions, graced the pages of newspapers and magazines, creating a powerful aspirational ideal. You'd read glowing testimonials from seemingly satisfied users, unaware of the insidious damage being done to their bodies. The lack of scientific understanding and the absence of regulatory bodies meant that the public was largely unaware of the dangers, trusting the claims of manufacturers who prioritized profit over public health. It's like trusting a beauty influencer who's secretly selling you a product that gives you superpowers, and then wondering why you're slowly dying from radiation poisoning. So, as you drift deeper into the comfortable hum of the night, reflect on the terrible history of Victorian beauty treatments. It was an era where the pursuit of an ideal complexion led to the ingestion and application of potent poisons, all in the name of societal expectation. It's a chilling reminder that beauty standards, when taken to extremes, can be truly dangerous, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is simply healthy. Sweet dreams. And may your own beauty regimen always be safe and sane. The psychological toll of this relentless pursuit of an impossible ideal was immense. The constant pressure to conform to societal beauty standards, to achieve a youthful glow that defied nature, must have weighed heavily on women. They would endure the discomfort, the unexplained symptoms, and the very real risks, all for the sake of conforming to a beauty standard that demanded an unnatural vitality. The allure of eternal youth, fueled by the promise of scientific miracles, drove them to desperate measures, risking their health, and sometimes their lives, for a fleeting aesthetic. It was a silent, internal struggle, a constant battle against their own natural aging process and the insidious radiation they willingly embraced. You've just stepped out of that dimly lit Victorian boudoir, perhaps still smelling the faint, metallic tang of those peculiar complexion wafers. You've glimpsed the terrifying reality of pursuing beauty in an age where arsenic was a beauty secret. Now, let's peel back another layer of that perfectly powdered facade and truly understand the obsession that drove so many to such dangerous lengths, the ideal of pale skin. Imagine, if you will, a world where a sun-kissed glow was not only unfashionable but a mark of social disgrace, and a complexion as white as fresh snow was the ultimate sign of elegance, purity, and status. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the true prevalence of radium poisoning from beauty treatments and its overall impact on public health. Some scholars argue that while these products were indeed sold, the actual amount of radium in many of them might have been very small, limiting the most severe cases of acute poisoning to those who ingested large quantities like the radium girls. Factory workers who painted watch dials with radium paint, they contend that the more widespread effects were perhaps subtle and went largely unrecognized. Others argue that even low-level chronic exposure to radium, especially through daily application or ingestion, would have had a cumulative and devastating effect on women's health, contributing to a range of unexplained illnesses, cancers, and premature deaths that were not properly diagnosed or understood at the time. It's like arguing whether a tiny, invisible speck of glitter is truly harmful, or if it's just making you sparkle. The long-term effects of insidious poisons, especially radioactive ones, are often harder to pinpoint and attribute, especially in an era without modern toxicology and radiation biology. You find yourself in the bustling streets of London, or perhaps a quiet drawing room in a country estate. Everywhere you look, in portraits, in fashion plates, in the very faces of the ladies you pass. The ideal is clear paleness. Not just a light complexion, but a delicate, almost translucent pallor, often described as lily white or alabaster. This wasn't merely an aesthetic preference, it was a deeply ingrained social code. A pale complexion screamed, "I am wealthy, I do not toil in the fields, I spend my days indoors, engaged in refined pursuits." A tanned face, on the other hand, hinted at a life of manual labor, of exposure to the elements, of a lower social standing. So the pursuit of paleness became an obsession, a silent battle against the sun's natural embrace, a constant effort to maintain a complexion that broadcasted your position in society. It was like wearing your bank statement on your face, but instead of numbers, it was just extreme whiteness. You might also consider the role of scientific illiteracy and the public's fascination with new discoveries. The early 20th century was a time of immense scientific progress, and the public was often eager to embrace new technologies and substances, even without fully understanding their implications. Radium, with its mysterious glow and its association with groundbreaking scientific research, seemed to offer a magical solution to the age-old problem of aging. This combination of scientific wonder and public naivete created a fertile ground for exploitation by unscrupulous manufacturers. This obsession was fueled by the stark class divisions of the Victorian era. The working classes, both men and women, spent their days outdoors, in factories, or in manual labor, inevitably acquiring a tanned or ruddy complexion. The aristocracy and the burgeoning middle class, however, prided themselves on their leisure, their delicate sensibilities, and their freedom from physical exertion. A pale complexion was a visual testament to this privileged existence. It symbolized purity, fragility, and a delicate constitution, qualities highly valued in Victorian womanhood. A woman who was too robust, too tanned, was seen as less refined, less feminine. So you would go to extreme lengths to avoid the sun, carrying parasols, wearing wide-brimmed hats, and, most dangerously, turning to internal and external remedies to achieve that coveted ghostly pallor. So, as you drift deeper into the comfortable hum of the night, reflect on the terrible history of Victorian and Edwardian beauty treatments, particularly the emergence of new radioactive cures for eternal youth. It was an era where the desire for a youthful glow led to the application and ingestion of a deadly radioactive element, all in the name of societal expectation and an often unreachable standard. It's a chilling reminder that beauty standards, when taken to extremes, can be truly dangerous, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is simply healthy, with your own natural radiance. Sweet dreams, and may your own glow always be natural and radiation-free. This is where the truly terrifying treatments, particularly those involving arsenic, come into sharper focus. You might be a young woman, desperate to secure a good marriage, or an older lady trying to maintain her youthful appearance. You've heard whispers of these miraculous complexion wafers or pills that promise to transform your skin. These small, seemingly innocuous tablets, often sold in charming little boxes with elegant labels, were widely available. This is a common historical fact. Arsenic was a popular ingredient in Victorian beauty treatments, particularly in complexion wafers or pills. These products, often marketed under alluring names like arsenic complexion wafers, Fowler's Solution, or Dr. Mackenzie's arsenic wafers, promise to whiten the skin, clear blemishes, and give you that desirable ethereal glow. You would ingest these wafers daily, perhaps with your morning tea, believing you were enhancing your beauty and elevating your social standing. You've just escaped the insidious glow of radium, having glimpsed the terrifying pursuit of eternal youth that blended scientific discovery with deadly naivete. You've felt the phantom tingling of radiation on your skin, and the chilling thought of dissolving bones. But the relentless pursuit of beauty in Victorian and Edwardian eras was a multifaceted beast, extending its reach to every inch of your visible skin. Now, let's turn our attention to a persistent nuisance for many, unwanted hair, and the often painful, damaging, and truly bizarre methods used to achieve that coveted smooth skin. Imagine, if you will, that to remove a few stray hairs, you would willingly apply caustic chemicals that could burn your flesh. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the opulent, yet often terrifying, world of Victorian England. Imagine, if you will, gas lamps flickering on cobblestone streets, the rustle of silk gowns, and the distant clip-clop of horse-drawn carriages. You're a fashionable lady, or perhaps a gentleman, living in an era obsessed with appearances, where societal expectations dictated every curl of your hair and every shade of your complexion. But beneath the veneer of elegance and propriety, there was a dark secret. The pursuit of beauty often led to truly terrible, even deadly treatments. And let's be honest, if you were actually trying to achieve some of these beauty ideals back then, you probably wouldn't have survived to tell the tale. Just a little reality check for your comfort. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in a private dressing room, perhaps, or a discreet salon. The air thick with the scent of harsh chemicals, something vaguely acrid or metallic, mingling with floral perfumes. You look into a small, ornate mirror, scrutinizing your reflection. A few dark hairs mar your upper lip, or perhaps a faint fuzz darkens your forearms, or perhaps even a few stray hairs appear on your chin. In an era obsessed with delicate femininity and pristine appearances, unwanted hair, particularly on women's faces, was considered a significant blemish, a mark of coarseness or even masculinity. The ideal Victorian woman was smooth, delicate, and utterly hairless in all the wrong places. So, the pursuit of smooth skin became another obsession, a silent battle against the natural growth of hair, a constant effort to conform to an unnatural ideal. The immediate effects of arsenic, in very small, controlled doses, though uncontrolled is a generous term for the era, could indeed seem positive. Arsenic can constrict blood vessels, making the skin appear whiter and more translucent. It can also cause a slight swelling that temporarily smooths out fine lines and wrinkles, giving a plumped-up, youthful appearance. For a short time, you might look exactly like the porcelain doll ideal depicted in fashion magazines. You might even receive compliments on your glowing complexion. It's like a very dangerous, very slow-acting filter for your face, giving you that perfect, unblemished look, just with a side of, well, poison. You'd be looking absolutely ghastly in the best possible way. This is where the truly terrifying treatments begin to burn. Quite literally. You might find yourself preparing to apply a depilatory cream or powder, often advertised as a hair remover or hair destroyer. These products, often sold under alluring names that promised effortless results, were widely available. This is a common historical fact. Early depilatories in the Victorian era often contained highly caustic chemicals, such as arsenic trisulfide, quicklime calcium oxide, or lye-sodium hydroxide washed potassium hydroxide. These substances, when mixed with water to form a paste and applied to the skin, would chemically dissolve the hair, allowing it to be wiped away. You would apply this paste to your skin, perhaps with a small wooden spatula, believing you were achieving silky smoothness. It's like having a built-in hair removal filter, but instead of an app, it's a highly corrosive chemical. And instead of just looking good, you're also risking chemical burns and permanent scarring. You'd be looking absolutely smooth in the most literal and terrifying sense. But the insidious nature of arsenic meant that the damage was cumulative and often irreversible. You wouldn't suddenly drop dead after one wafer. Instead, the poison would slowly accumulate in your system, wreaking havoc on your internal organs and gradually manifesting in a terrifying array of symptoms. You might start to feel a persistent weakness, a dull ache in your joints, or a strange tingling or numbness in your fingers and toes, often mistaken for rheumatism or simple fatigue. Your hair, once lustrous, might begin to thin dramatically, falling out in clumps. Your nails could become brittle, discolored, and develop characteristic white bands. Mies lines, your skin, the very thing you were trying to perfect, might develop strange lesions, rashes, or a peculiar waxy pallor that was far from the desired ethereal glow. You might suffer from chronic nausea, vomiting, and excruciating abdominal pain, symptoms often attributed to indigestion or nervous complaints. The immediate effects of these caustic solutions were often excruciating. you might immediately feel a burning sensation, a sharp prickling, followed by intense pain as the chemicals began to react with your skin. The skin could become red, inflamed, and blistered, sometimes even developing raw, open sores. The smell would be acrid, pungent, and almost unbearable, filling your nostrils with the stench of burning hair and irritated flesh. You would quickly wipe away the paste, hoping to alleviate the burning, but the damage would often already be done. It's like trying to remove hair with a chemical peel designed for industrial cleaning. Not exactly a comfortable beauty regimen. As the poisoning progressed, the symptoms would become more severe. Organ damage, particularly to the liver and kidneys, would set in, leading to a gradual decline in health. Neurological problems, including muscle weakness, paralysis, and even cognitive impairment, could manifest. Your breath might develop a faint, garlicky odor, a telltale sign of arsenic poisoning that often went unrecognized. In the end, chronic arsenic exposure would lead to a slow, agonizing death, often misdiagnosed as other illnesses. It's like trying to achieve a perfect complexion by slowly poisoning yourself, and then wondering why you feel a bit under the weather. The irony, of course, would be lost on you, as your body slowly succumbed to the very substance you believed was making you beautiful. As the caustic chemicals worked their way into your skin, the long-term effects would begin to manifest. Repeated application could lead to chronic skin irritation, dermatitis, and severe allergic reactions. The skin could become permanently discolored, developing dark patches or a mottled appearance. More severely, chemical burns could lead to deep, painful wounds that would heal slowly, leaving behind disfiguring scars. Imagine trying to remove a few stray hairs from your upper lip and ending up with a permanently scarred, discolored patch of skin. The irony of course, would be lost on you, as the very beauty you sought to enhance was irrevocably damaged, leaving you with visible, painful reminders of your desperate pursuit. The pursuit of paleness wasn't limited to arsenic. Other heavy metals, equally toxic, found their way into Victorian cosmetics. Lead, for instance, was a common ingredient in face powders, creams, and even eye makeup. You would slather these concoctions onto your face, believing you were achieving perfection, while slowly absorbing lead into your system. Lead poisoning could cause devastating effects, severe abdominal pain, constipation, anemia, and, most terrifyingly, neurological damage leading to seizures, cognitive decline, and even madness. A characteristic lead line could appear on the gums, a dark blue or black line that betrayed the insidious poisoning. Mercury, another highly toxic heavy metal, was also used in skin-lightening creams and ointments. Chronic mercury exposure could lead to skin discoloration, kidney damage, tremors, and severe neurological and psychological problems, including irritability, anxiety, and even psychosis. Imagine trying to look beautiful and ending up with tremors and kidney failure. It's like using a very fancy, very expensive, and very poisonous foundation, and then wondering why you're suddenly having vivid hallucinations. Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about unwanted hair removal beyond caustic chemicals. Some Victorian women resorted to using pumice stones or even fine sandpaper to abrade the skin and remove hair. This was a particularly painful and often ineffective method, as it would only remove the hair at the surface and could cause severe skin irritation, abrasions, and ingrown hairs. The constant rubbing would leave your skin raw, red, and prone to infection, all for a temporary and often incomplete hair removal. Imagine trying to achieve smooth skin by literally sanding it down. It's a bit like trying to exfoliate your face with a brick. Truly absurd, and incredibly damaging. Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about the pursuit of paleness and a specific, truly bizarre trend, some Victorian women would deliberately consume chalk or plaster of Paris. This wasn't for its whitening properties directly, but because it was believed to suppress appetite and led to a gaunt, sickly appearance, which was also considered fashionable, particularly for those suffering from consumption tuberculosis. The delicate, fragile, almost ethereal look of a consumptive woman, with her pale skin, flushed cheeks from fever, and emaciated frame, was tragically romanticized in the era's literature and art. Some women, desperate to emulate this consumptive chic, would go to extreme lengths, ingesting chalk or plaster to achieve a similar emaciated, sickly appearance. You'd probably end up with severe digestive issues, mineral deficiencies, and a very confused doctor wondering why you're eating construction materials. It's a bit like trying to achieve a heroin chic look by actually developing a debilitating illness. Truly terrible, and utterly baffling to our modern minds. The market for these dangerous hair removal treatments was, like other Victorian beauty products, largely unregulated. Quack doctors, charlatans, and opportunistic entrepreneurs peddled these glowing concoctions with impunity, promising miraculous results with no side effects. Advertisements, featuring alluring illustrations of women with impossibly smooth, pristine skin, graced the pages of newspapers and magazines, creating a powerful aspirational ideal. You'd read glowing testimonials from seemingly satisfied users, unaware of the insidious damage being done to their skin. The lack of scientific understanding and the absence of regulatory bodies meant that the public was largely unaware of the dangers, trusting the claims of manufacturers who prioritized profit over public health. It's like trusting a beauty influencer who's secretly selling you a product that gives you superpowers, and then wondering why your skin is permanently scarred. The market for these dangerous beauty treatments was largely unregulated. A wild west of dubious products and persuasive, often deceptive, advertising. Quack doctors and charlatans peddled these dangerous concoctions with impunity, promising miraculous results with no side effects. Advertisements, often featuring alluring illustrations of impossibly beautiful, pale women, graced the pages of newspapers and magazines, creating a powerful aspirational ideal. You'd read glowing testimonials from seemingly satisfied customers, unaware of the insidious damage being done to their bodies. The lack of scientific understanding meant that the public was largely unaware of the dangers, trusting the claims of manufacturers who prioritized profit over public health. It's like trusting a beauty influencer who's secretly selling you poison, and then wondering why your skin looks so translucent and you're slowly dying. The psychological toll of this relentless pursuit of an impossible ideal was immense. The constant pressure to conform to societal beauty standards, to achieve a perfectly smooth, hairless complexion that defied nature, must have weighed heavily on women. Unwanted hair, particularly on the face, could be a source of profound embarrassment and shame, driving individuals to desperate measures. They would endure the burning, the pain, the scarring, and the very real risks, all for the sake of conforming to a beauty standard that demanded an unnatural perfection from their skin. It was a silent, internal struggle, a constant battle against their own natural biology and the insidious chemicals they willingly applied. The psychological toll of this relentless pursuit of an impossible ideal was immense. The constant pressure to conform to societal beauty standards, to achieve a ghostly pallor that was both unnatural and dangerous, must have weighed heavily on Victorian women. They would spend hours on their beauty routines, meticulously applying powders and creams, often in dim light, hoping to achieve that elusive perfection. The fear of appearing unfashionable, common, or unmarriageable would drive them to desperate measures, risking their health, and sometimes their lives, for the sake of appearance. It was a silent, internal struggle, a constant battle against their own natural complexion and the insidious poisons they willingly ingested. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the true prevalence of chemical burns and other injuries from Victorian hair removal treatments. Some scholars argue that while these products were indeed sold, their extreme discomfort might have limited widespread, prolonged use, and that many women might have used them sparingly due to the immediate pain. They contend that the more severe cases of chemical burns and disfigurement were perhaps less common than sensationalized accounts suggest. Others argue that chronic, low-level exposure to these caustic chemicals, combined with the lack of proper medical diagnosis, meant that many cases of chronic skin irritation, discoloration, and scarring might have gone unrecognized as being caused by beauty products, contributing to a range of unexplained skin conditions and discomfort. It's like arguing whether a very strong, very painful facial scrub is truly beneficial, or if it's just stripping your skin. The long-term effects of insidious chemicals are often harder to pinpoint and attribute, especially in an era without modern toxicology and dermatological understanding. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the true prevalence of arsenic and lead poisoning from beauty treatments and their overall impact on Victorian public health. Some scholars argue that while these ingredients were indeed used, the doses might have been relatively small and widespread. Acute poisoning was perhaps less common than sensationalized accounts suggest. They contend that many of the symptoms attributed to these treatments might have been due to other prevailing diseases of the era, such as tuberculosis or syphilis, which also caused skin lesions and general malaise. Others argue that chronic, low-level exposure to these toxins would have had a cumulative and devastating effect on women's health, contributing to a range of unexplained illnesses, chronic pain, and premature deaths that were not properly diagnosed or understood at the time. It's like arguing whether your daily dose of questionable supplements is slowly killing you, or if it's just making your wallet lighter. The long-term effects of insidious poisons are often harder to pinpoint and attribute, especially in an era without modern toxicology. You might also consider the social implications of unwanted hair. While today, hair removal is a common practice, in the Victorian era, visible hair on a woman's face or arms could be seen as a sign of a coarse nature, or even a hint of masculinity, which was highly undesirable. This societal pressure, combined with the lack of effective and safe alternatives, drove women to embrace methods that were both painful and dangerous. The desire to appear perfectly feminine, delicate, and pristine often outweighed any personal discomfort or health risk. You might also consider the role of fashion and societal pressure in overriding common sense. Even if a woman suspected a remedy was making her feel ill, the desire to conform, to be beautiful in the eyes of society, often outweighed her physical discomfort. The ideal of beauty was a powerful, almost tyrannical force, compelling women to endure suffering and risk their lives for a fleeting aesthetic. So, as you drift deeper into the comfortable hum of the night, reflect on the terrible history of Victorian beauty treatments, particularly the use of caustic solutions for unwanted hair. It was an era where the desire for smooth skin led to the application of burning chemicals and abrasive stones, all in the name of societal expectation and an often unreachable standard. It's a chilling reminder that beauty standards, when taken to extremes, can be truly dangerous, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is simply healthy, with your own natural skin, whatever its texture or hair growth. Sweet dreams, and may your own hair removal always be safe and gentle. So, as you drift deeper into the comfortable hum of the night, reflect on the terrible history of Victorian beauty treatments, particularly the toxic pursuit of pale skin. It was an era where the desire for an ideal complexion led to the ingestion and application of potent poisons, all in the name of societal expectation and an often unreachable standard. It's a chilling reminder that beauty standards, when taken to extremes, can be truly dangerous, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is simply healthy. You've just endured the burning sensation of caustic depilatories and the abrasive scrape of pumice stones, all in the relentless pursuit of smooth, hairless skin. You've glimpsed the terrifying lengths to which Victorian women would go to conform to an unnatural ideal, risking chemical burns and permanent scarring. But the obsession with perfection in this era extended beyond the skin and hair. It reached into the very smile you presented to the world. Now, let's turn our attention to dental perfection and the often painful, destructive, and truly bizarre remedies. Victorians sought for a flawless smile. Imagine, if you will, that to achieve pearly white teeth, you would willingly subject yourself to crude and agonizing procedures. You've just emerged from the oppressive boudoir, perhaps still feeling the phantom chill of lead-laced powders on your skin, or the insidious creep of arsenic in your system. You've glimpsed the terrifying lengths to which Victorian women would go to achieve that coveted ghostly pallor, a stark symbol of status and leisure. But the pursuit of beauty in this era wasn't confined to the complexion. Oh no, the eyes, those windows to the soul, were another focal point of obsession, and the methods used to make them sparkle were perhaps even more chillingly deceptive. Imagine, if you will, that to achieve a captivating gaze, You would willingly drop a potent poison into your very eyes. You find yourself in a dentist's parlor, perhaps, or a private chamber, the air thick with the faint, metallic scent of instruments, mingled with the cloying sweetness of ether or chloroform, if you were lucky enough to afford them. You look into a small, ornate mirror, scrutinizing your reflection, your teeth, perhaps discolored from years of tea and tobacco, or marred by cavities and decay, seem to lack the desired brilliance. The ideal Victorian smile was one of pristine white teeth, straight and even, a symbol of health, refinement, and social standing. A crooked, discolored, or decaying smile was a source of considerable embarrassment and shame, a visible sign of neglect or lower class. So, the pursuit of dental perfection became another obsession, a silent battle against the natural processes of decay and the limitations of their own dental hygiene. You find yourself in a dimly lit drawing room, perhaps, or a private chamber, away from prying eyes. You look into a small, ornate mirror, scrutinizing your reflection. Your eyes, perhaps a little tired from late-night social engagements or the strain of meticulous needlework, seem dull, lacking the desired sparkle. The ideal Victorian eye was large, dark, and luminous, with a wide, almost childlike pupil that conveyed an air of innocence, mystery, and allure. This wasn't just an aesthetic preference, it was a subtle language, a nonverbal cue that could convey emotion, interest, or even a hint of vulnerability, all highly prized qualities in Victorian femininity. A wide, dilated pupil was associated with beauty, youth, and attraction, a visual signal that you were captivated, or captivating. So, the pursuit of this sparkling gaze became another obsession, a silent battle against the natural limits of your own anatomy. This is where the truly terrifying treatments begin to ache. Quite literally. You might find yourself preparing for a dental procedure that, to our modern sensibilities, seems utterly barbaric. There were no high-speed drills, no precision instruments, and certainly no comfortable dental chairs. Instead, you'd be subjected to crude extractions, painful fillings, and often destructive attempts at whitening. This is where a truly insidious plant enters the scene, Atropa belladonna, commonly known as deadly nightshade. You might have heard its name whispered in hushed tones, perhaps in tales of witchcraft or ancient poisons. But in Victorian England, this potent plant found its way into the beauty regimen of fashionable women, not for its lethal properties, though those were certainly present, but for its ability to dilate the pupils. A common historical fact is that tooth extraction was the most common dental procedure in the Victorian era, often performed by barbers, blacksmiths, or itinerant tooth drawers rather than trained dentists. If you suffered from a severe toothache or a decaying tooth, the most likely cure was simply to have it pulled. You would sit on a simple chair or perhaps even lie on the floor as the practitioner, often with a pair of crude forceps or tooth keys, would wrench the offending tooth from your jaw. You'd feel a searing, agonizing pain, often without any effective anesthesia, as the tooth was twisted and pulled from its socket. The sound of the cracking bone and the tearing flesh would be sickeningly audible, followed by a gush of blood. It's like trying to remove a stubborn nail with a pair of pliers. But the nail is your tooth, and the pliers are being wielded by someone who might also shoe horses. Truly terrifying. A common historical fact is that belladonna was used in Victorian beauty treatments to enlarge the pupils, making the eyes appear larger, darker, and more alluring. The name belladonna itself, meaning beautiful lady in Italian, is a direct reference to this cosmetic use, dating back centuries before the Victorian era. Women would apply drops of a belladonna extract directly into their eyes, often using a small dropper or even a feather. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Your pupils would dilate, sometimes to an unnaturally wide degree, giving your eyes a dark, luminous quality that was considered incredibly captivating. It's like having a built-in enlarge eyes filter, but instead of an app, it's a highly toxic plant. And instead of just looking good, you're also risking your eyesight. Even if you were lucky enough to find a trained dentist, their methods were still rudimentary. Fillings, often made of amalgam, a mixture of mercury and other metals or gold, were crude and often painful to apply. The cavity would be scraped out with hand tools, a slow, agonizing process, before the filling was packed in. The risk of infection was high, and the fillings themselves were often prone to falling out or causing further decay. But the insidious nature of belladonna meant that the pursuit of this captivating gaze came with a terrifying price. Belladonna is a powerful anticholinergic, meaning it blocks the action of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter. While this causes pupil dilation, it also has a host of other, less desirable effects. You might immediately feel a stinging sensation in your eyes, followed by a blurring of your vision. Your eyes would become highly sensitive to light, making bright rooms or sunny days incredibly uncomfortable, even painful. You might find yourself squinting constantly, or seeking out dim corners, all to avoid the agonizing glare, and it's like trying to achieve sparkling eyes by constantly looking at a solar eclipse. Not exactly a comfortable beauty regimen. As the belladonna was absorbed, its systemic effects would begin to manifest. You might experience a dry mouth, difficulty swallowing, and a rapid heartbeat. Your skin could become flushed and dry, and you might feel a strange restlessness or agitation. In higher doses, or with prolonged use, belladonna could cause more severe symptoms: hallucinations, delirium, confusion, and even convulsions. Your mind might become a hazy, disorienting landscape, filled with strange visions and distorted realities. All while your eyes, ironically, continued to sparkle with an unnatural luminosity. In extreme cases, belladonna poisoning could lead to coma and death. It's like trying to make your eyes sparkle by slowly going insane. Truly terrifying. Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about belladonna, use some women, in their desperation to maintain the dilated pupil effect, would apply the drops multiple times a day, or even use stronger, more concentrated solutions. This increased the risk of systemic poisoning and exacerbated the side effects. The constant blurring of vision would make everyday tasks incredibly difficult, from reading a letter to sewing a seam. You might find yourself bumping into furniture, misjudging distances, or struggling to recognize faces, all while maintaining that alluring, yet ultimately debilitating gaze. The irony, of course, would be lost on you, as your vision deteriorated in the pursuit of a fleeting aesthetic. It's a bit like trying to improve your hearing by constantly blasting loud music directly into your ears. Counterproductive, to say the least. Other methods for whitening included using highly abrasive powders made from crushed cuttlefish bone, pumice, or even brick dust. These powders, when rubbed vigorously onto the teeth, would physically abrade the surface, removing stains but also slowly grinding away the precious enamel. Your gums would bleed, your teeth would ache, and your enamel would gradually disappear, leaving your teeth vulnerable to decay and sensitivity. It's like trying to polish a delicate antique with sandpaper. The immediate effect might be a superficial shine, but the long-term damage is irreversible. The long-term effects of belladonna use were devastating. Chronic exposure could lead to permanent vision damage, including glaucoma, a condition that damages the optic nerve and can lead to blindness. The constant strain on the eye muscles from prolonged dilation could also lead to chronic eye pain and discomfort. You might find your vision becoming permanently blurred, your sensitivity to light enduring long after you stopped using the drops. The very beauty you sought to enhance could be irrevocably damaged, leaving you with impaired vision and a lifetime of regret. The market for these dangerous dental treatments was like other Victorian beauty products, largely unregulated. Quack dentists, charlatans, and opportunistic entrepreneurs peddled these glowing concoctions and brutal procedures with impunity, promising miraculous results with no side effects. Advertisements, featuring alluring illustrations of men and women with impossibly perfect, pristine smiles, graced the pages of newspapers and magazines, creating a powerful aspirational ideal. You'd read glowing testimonials from seemingly satisfied users, unaware of the insidious damage being done to their teeth and their overall oral health. The lack of scientific understanding and the absence of regulatory bodies meant that the public was largely unaware of the dangers, trusting the claims of manufacturers who prioritized profit over public health. It's like trusting a beauty influencer who's secretly selling you a product that gives you superpowers, and then wondering why your teeth are falling out. The market for belladonna eye drops was like other Victorian beauty treatments, largely unregulated. Quack doctors and charlatans peddled these dangerous concoctions, often under misleading names that hinted at their natural origins or their beautifying properties. Advertisements, featuring alluring illustrations of women with impossibly large, dark eyes, promised a captivating gaze that would attract admirers and elevate your social standing. You'd read glowing testimonials from seemingly satisfied users, unaware of the insidious damage being done to their eyes and their overall health. The lack of scientific understanding meant that the public was largely unaware of the dangers, trusting the claims of manufacturers who prioritized profit over public health. It's like trusting a beauty influencer who's secretly selling you poison, and then wondering why your vision is slowly fading. The psychological toll of this relentless pursuit of an impossible ideal was immense. The constant pain of toothaches, the embarrassment of decay, and the desperate desire to conform to societal beauty standards must have weighed heavily on Victorians. A perfect smile was a symbol of health, prosperity, and refinement. A flawed smile could lead to social ostracization and to blow to one's self-esteem. They would endure the agonizing pain of extractions, the discomfort of crude fillings, and the burning sensation of acidic whitening agents, all for the sake of conforming to a beauty standard that demanded an unnatural perfection from their teeth. It was a silent, internal struggle, a constant battle against their own natural biology and the insidious chemicals and brutal procedures they willingly embraced. The psychological toll of this pursuit was immense. The constant discomfort, the blurring vision, the fear of being discovered, and the desperate desire to maintain that alluring gaze must have weighed heavily on Victorian women. They would endure the pain and the risk, all for the sake of conforming to a beauty standard that demanded an unnatural luminosity from their eyes. The pressure to appear captivating, mysterious, and alluring would drive them to desperate measures, risking their eyesight and sometimes their lives for a fleeting aesthetic. It was a silent, internal struggle, a constant battle against their own natural anatomy and the insidious poison they willingly applied. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the true prevalence of dental problems and the effectiveness of Victorian dental treatments. Some scholars argue that while dental hygiene was generally poor, the most severe and destructive treatments might have been less common than sensationalized accounts suggest, and that many people simply lived with their dental issues rather than seeking dangerous interventions. They contend that the high cost of dental procedures also limited access for many. Others argue that chronic dental pain and widespread tooth loss were endemic in Victorian society, and that the dangerous treatments, though limited in their effectiveness, were a desperate attempt to alleviate suffering and conform to beauty standards. They point to the high incidence of skeletal remains showing extensive dental decay and missing teeth. It's like arguing whether a very old, very broken down car is still technically drivable, even if it's missing a few wheels. It might be, but you probably wouldn't want to go for a ride. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the true prevalence of belladonna use in Victorian beauty regimens and its overall impact on public health. Some scholars argue that while belladonna was indeed used, its high toxicity might have limited widespread, prolonged use, and that many women might have used it sparingly due to the immediate discomfort. They contend that the more severe cases of poisoning were perhaps less common than sensationalized accounts suggest. Others argue that chronic low-level exposure, combined with the lack of proper medical diagnosis, meant that many cases of vision impairment or other systemic symptoms might have gone unrecognized as belladonna poisoning, contributing to a range of unexplained illnesses and disabilities. It's like arguing whether a very strong, very bitter coffee is truly good for you, or if it's just giving you a temporary jolt. The long-term effects of insidious poisons are often harder to pinpoint and attribute, especially in an era without modern toxicology and ophthalmology. You might also consider the social implications of a perfect smile. For those in the upper echelons of society, a flawless smile was a non-negotiable asset, essential for social engagements, public appearances, and securing advantageous marriages. This pressure drove them to seek out the most advanced and often dangerous dental procedures, regardless of the cost or the pain. For the poorer classes, dental care was often non-existent, and tooth loss was a common reality, leading to a visible class distinction in smiles. You might also consider the role of fashion and societal pressure in overriding common sense. Even if a woman experienced discomfort or blurred vision, the desire to conform, to be beautiful in the eyes of society, often outweighed her physical suffering. The ideal of beauty was a powerful, almost tyrannical force, compelling women to endure pain and risk their eyesight for a fleeting aesthetic. So, as you drift deeper into the comfortable hum of the night, reflect on the terrible history of Victorian beauty treatments, particularly the pursuit of dental perfection. It was an era where the desire for a flawless smile led to agonizing extractions, crude fillings, and the application of burning chemicals that stripped away enamel, all in the name of societal expectation and an often unreachable standard. It's a chilling reminder that beauty standards, when taken to extremes, can be truly dangerous, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is simply healthy, with your own natural smile, whatever its imperfections. Sweet dreams, Marie, and may your own dental care always be gentle and effective. So, as you drift deeper into the comfortable hum of the night, reflect on the terrible history of Victorian beauty treatments, particularly the use of belladonna to create sparkling eyes. It was an era where the desire for a captivating gaze led to the application of a potent poison, all in the name of societal expectation and an often unreachable standard. It's a chilling reminder that beauty standards, when taken to extremes, can be truly dangerous, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is simply healthy, with clear, natural eyes, sweet dreams, and may your own eyes always sparkle with natural light. You've just navigated the agonizing world of Victorian dental perfection, witnessing the crude extractions, the painful fillings, and the destructive attempts at whitening. You've felt the phantom ache in your teeth and the chilling thought of dissolving enamel. But the relentless pursuit of beauty in this era was a multifaceted beast, extending its reach to every corner of the unregulated market. Now, let's turn our attention to the shadowy figures who capitalized on these desperate desires, the quackery and charlatans who peddled dubious products and made persuasive, yet utterly false, promises of beauty. Imagine, if you will, that your quest for perfection leads you into the hands of unscrupulous individuals whose only goal is to lighten your purse. Not your complexion. You've just peered into the terrifying depths of Victorian eye treatments, witnessing the insidious allure of belladonna and the devastating price paid for a captivating gaze. You've felt the phantom sting in your eyes and the chilling creep of systemic poisoning. But the relentless pursuit of beauty in this era was a multifaceted beast, extending its reach to every aspect of your appearance. Now, let's turn our attention to your crowning glory, your hair. Imagine, if you will, the lengths to which Victorian men and women would go to achieve lush, voluminous locks, often turning to questionable tonics and bizarre concoctions that promised restoration but delivered only disappointment. Or worse, you find yourself wandering through a bustling Victorian street fair, perhaps, or flipping through the pages of a popular magazine. The air is thick with the cries of street vendors, the scent of horse manure, and the alluring aroma of freshly baked goods. But amidst the legitimate commerce, you hear a different kind of call, the booming voice of a man on a makeshift stage, or the enticing headlines in a newspaper advertisement, promising miraculous transformations. These are the charlatans, the quack doctors, the snake oil salesmen of the Victorian era, ready to exploit your deepest insecurities and your desperate desire for beauty. You find yourself in a dressing room, perhaps, or a private salon, the air thick with the scent of hair tonics, pomades, and something vaguely medicinal. You look into a mirror, scrutinizing your reflection, your hair, perhaps thinning slightly with age, or dull from the harsh realities of daily life, seems to lack the desired luster and volume. The ideal Victorian hair was a cascade of thick, lustrous curls or waves for women, often styled into elaborate updos that required immense volume and length. For men, a full head of hair, often styled neatly or with a fashionable parting, was a sign of virility and youth. Hair loss, thinning, or dullness was a source of considerable anxiety, a visible sign of declining beauty and, for men, a potential blow to their masculinity. So, the pursuit of lush hair became another obsession, a silent battle against the natural processes of aging and genetics. This is where the truly terrifying treatments begin to feel like a con, quite literally. You might find yourself drawn to a booth adorned with colorful banners and testimonials, where a man with a flamboyant mustache and an even more flamboyant suit holds up a bottle of miracle elixir. He promises to cure all your ailments, from thinning hair to dull skin, from persistent blemishes to the ravages of age. His words are smooth, persuasive, and utterly devoid of scientific truth. You listen, captivated by his promises, desperate for a solution to your beauty woes. This is where the market for hair tonics and restorers truly exploded. You might see advertisements in newspapers and magazines, promising miraculous regrowth, vibrant color, and incredible volume. These products, often sold under alluring names like Seven Sutherland Sisters Hair Grower, Mrs. Allen's World's Hair Restorer, or Ayer's Hair Vigor, promise to reverse baldness, prevent graying, and transform dull hair into a luxurious mane. You would apply these tonics daily, perhaps massaging them into your scalp with fervent hope, believing you were restoring your youthful glory. It's like having a built-in hair growth filter. But instead of an app, it's a bottle of questionable liquid. And instead of just looking good, you're also risking your scalp. A common historical fact is that the Victorian era was a golden age for quackery and patent medicines. With limited scientific understanding of disease, a lack of effective regulation, and a public eager for quick fixes, unscrupulous individuals flourished. These patent medicines were often proprietary concoctions, their ingredients secret, and their claims wildly exaggerated. They were sold directly to the public through extensive advertising campaigns in newspapers and magazines, often bypassing the medical establishment entirely. So, if you had a persistent cough or wanted to whiten your teeth, you might turn to a bottle of Dr. Johnson's Universal Elixir rather than a trained physician. It's like your ancient Roman doctor was also a very enthusiastic, but completely unqualified, infomercial pitchman. But the insidious nature of many of these concoctions meant that the pursuit of lush hair came with a terrifying price. Many Victorian hair tonics contained highly dangerous ingredients, often without the knowledge of the consumer. Lead, for instance, was a common ingredient in hair dyes and restorers, particularly those promising to darken graying hair. Lead acetate, a form of lead, would react with the sulfur in hair proteins to produce lead sulfide, a dark pigment that would indeed darken the hair. It's like trying to dye your hair by slowly poisoning yourself. Truly terrifying. The ingredients in these patent medicines and beauty products were often a bizarre and dangerous cocktail of substances. You might find yourself purchasing a complexion cream that contains lead or mercury, or a hair restorer with arsenic, or even a slimming pill with tapeworm eggs. The manufacturers were under no obligation to list their ingredients, allowing them to include highly toxic substances without public knowledge. The secret formula was their selling point, but it was also their dangerous secret. Imagine buying a beauty product that promises to make you glow, and it actually contains a radioactive element. Oh wait, we already talked about that. It's like a very dangerous, very unregulated mystery box, and the prize is often illness or death. As the lead was absorbed through the scalp, its systemic effects would begin to manifest. You might experience the same horrific symptoms we discussed earlier, hair loss ironically. The very thing you were trying to prevent. Brittle nails, skin lesions, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and eventually organ damage and death. Neurological problems, including muscle weakness, paralysis, and cognitive impairment. Could also occur. Your scalp might become irritated, itchy, or develop painful sores from the constant application of these toxic substances. Imagine trying to achieve vibrant hair by slowly going insane. Truly terrifying. Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about Victorian quackery, some charlatans would employ theatrical demonstrations or even use rudimentary electrical devices to prove the efficacy of their products. You might see a magnetic healer waving a wand over a patient, claiming to draw out illness, or a galvanic beauty device that promised to rejuvenate the skin with mild electric shocks. These devices, often more for show than for actual therapeutic benefit, were designed to impress and convince a skeptical public. The subtle tingling sensation of a mild electric current, or the dramatic movements of a magnetic wand, could be misinterpreted as genuine healing, reinforcing the belief in the product's miraculous powers. Imagine paying good money to have someone zap your face with a battery, believing it will make you look younger. It's a bit like ancient electroshock therapy for beauty, but without any medical oversight Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about Victorian hair tonics, some contained highly flammable ingredients, turning a simple beauty routine into a dangerous game of chance. Alcohol, often in high concentrations, was a common solvent in many hair tonics, giving them a quick drying effect. But some manufacturers, in their pursuit of stronger, more effective remedies, would also include ingredients like petroleum or even turpentine. These highly volatile substances, when applied to the hair and scalp, could easily ignite if exposed to an open flame, a gas lamp, a candle, or even a stray spark from a fireplace. Imagine trying to style your hair near a gas lamp, and suddenly your head bursts into flames. It's a bit like trying to achieve a perfect hairstyle by playing Russian roulette with your head. Talk about a fiery beauty regimen. The advertisements for these dubious products were incredibly persuasive, preying on the universal desires for beauty, health, and youth. They used florid language, exaggerated claims, and often fabricated testimonials from seemingly satisfied customers. The lack of scientific literacy among the general public meant that many were unable to discern genuine medical advice from outright fraud. The advertisements would often target specific insecurities: thinning hair, dull skin, unwanted blemishes, promising a quick, effortless, and miraculous solution. You'd read glowing reviews from Mrs. Smith of Kensington, who claimed her wrinkles vanished overnight, or Mr. Jones of Manchester, who swore his baldness was cured by a single bottle of tonic. It's like trusting a beauty influencer who's secretly selling you snake oil, and then wondering why you're not seeing any results. Or worse, why you're feeling ill. The long-term effects of these dangerous hair treatments were devastating. Chronic exposure to lead or other heavy metals could lead to permanent hair loss, scalp damage, and systemic poisoning. The constant irritation from harsh chemicals could cause chronic inflammation, dermatitis, and even severe allergic reactions. The flammability risk, while perhaps less common, posed an immediate and terrifying danger, leading to severe burns and disfigurement. You might find your hair becoming brittle, breaking easily, or even falling out in clumps, leaving you with a scalp scarred by chemical burns. A tragic irony in the pursuit of beauty. The psychological toll of this unregulated market was immense. Desperate individuals, often suffering from real ailments or deep-seated insecurities about their appearance, would spend their meager savings on these expensive, ineffective, and often dangerous products. The repeated disappointment, the worsening of symptoms, and the financial drain would lead to profound frustration, despair, and a sense of betrayal. They would continue to try new products, hoping that the next miracle cure would finally deliver on its promises, trapped in a cycle of false hope and escalating danger. It was a silent, internal struggle, a constant battle against their own vulnerabilities and the predatory nature of the unregulated beauty industry. The market for these dangerous hair treatments was like other Victorian beauty products, largely unregulated. Quack doctors, charlatans, and opportunistic entrepreneurs peddled these dangerous concoctions with impunity, promising miraculous results with no side effects. Advertisements, often featuring alluring illustrations of men and women with impossibly thick, lustrous hair, graced the pages of newspapers and magazines, creating a powerful aspirational ideal. You'd read glowing testimonials from seemingly satisfied users, unaware of the insidious damage being done to their hair, their scalp, and their overall health. The lack of scientific understanding and the absence of regulatory bodies meant that the public was largely unaware of the dangers, trusting the claims of manufacturers who prioritized profit over public health. It's like trusting a beauty influencer who's secretly selling you poison, and then wondering why your hair is falling out and your scalp is on fire. The lack of government regulation was a key factor in the proliferation of quackery. There were no laws requiring manufacturers to list ingredients, prove efficacy, or ensure safety. This allowed unscrupulous individuals to market dangerous and ineffective products with impunity. It wasn't until the early 20th century, with the rise of consumer protection movements and more scientific understanding, that governments began to implement regulations to curb these dangerous practices. It's like the Wild West of beauty products, where anything went, and the only law was caveat emptor: buyer beware. Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about Victorian dental perfection for tooth whitening, Some Victorians resorted to highly abrasive and acidic substances that would literally strip away the enamel of their teeth. Instead of gentle whitening agents, they might use mixtures containing sulfuric acid, nitric acid, or even strong bleaches. These substances, when applied to the teeth, would indeed make them appear whiter by dissolving the outer layer of enamel, revealing the lighter dentin underneath. However, this process would also severely weaken the teeth, making them incredibly sensitive, prone to decay, and eventually leading to their premature loss. Imagine trying to whiten your teeth by literally dissolving them. It's a bit like trying to clean your house with acid, and then wondering why your furniture is disintegrating. Truly absurd, and incredibly damaging. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the true impact of Victorian quackery on public health. Some scholars argue that while many products were ineffective, the direct harm from most patent medicines might have been limited, as many contained relatively harmless ingredients like alcohol or laxatives that simply offered a placebo effect. They contend that the real harm was often financial, draining the resources of desperate individuals. Others argue that the widespread use of highly toxic ingredients, even in small doses, contributed significantly to chronic illnesses, unexplained deaths, and a general decline in public health that went largely unrecognized due to the lack of proper medical diagnosis and toxicology. They point to the cumulative effects of long-term exposure to heavy metals and other poisons. It's like arguing whether a constant stream of misleading information is truly harmful, or if it's just annoying. The long-term effects of insidious deception are often harder to pinpoint and attribute, especially in an era without modern consumer protection and public health data. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the true prevalence of lead poisoning and other chemical injuries from Victorian hair treatments. Some scholars argue that while these ingredients were indeed used, the doses might have been relatively small and widespread. Acute poisoning was perhaps less common than sensationalized accounts suggest. They contend that many of the symptoms attributed to these treatments might have been due to other prevailing diseases of the era, or simply the natural process of aging. Others argue that chronic, low-level exposure to these toxins, combined with the lack of proper medical diagnosis, meant that many cases of hair loss, scalp damage, and systemic symptoms might have gone unrecognized as being caused by beauty products, contributing to a range of unexplained illnesses and disabilities. It's like arguing whether your daily use of a questionable hair product is slowly damaging your scalp, or if it's just making your hair look a bit dull. The long-term effects of insidious poisons are often harder to pinpoint and attribute, especially in an era without modern toxicology and dermatological understanding. You might also consider the role of celebrity endorsements. Even in the Victorian era, prominent figures, often unaware of the true nature of the products, would lend their names to advertisements, further legitimizing the claims of charlatans. This added another layer of deception, making it even harder for the average consumer to distinguish between genuine remedies and dangerous frauds. You might also consider the role of gender in these beauty standards. While women faced immense pressure to maintain voluminous hair for elaborate updos, men also faced pressure to avoid baldness, which could be seen as a sign of aging or declining virility. This meant that both sexes were vulnerable to the promises of dangerous hair tonics, each driven by their own specific societal expectations. So, as you drift deeper into the comfortable hum of the night, reflect on the terrible history of Victorian beauty treatments, particularly the rise of quackery and charlatans. It was an era where the desperate desire for perfection led individuals into the hands of unscrupulous peddlers of dubious products and false promises. It's a chilling reminder that beauty standards, when exploited by those without ethics, can be truly dangerous, and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is simply discerning, trusting in genuine expertise over alluring but empty claims. Sweet dreams. And may your own beauty regimen always be safe, effective, and free from charlatans. So, as you drift deeper into the comfortable hum of the night, reflect on the terrible history of Victorian beauty treatments, particularly the use of questionable tonics for lush hair. It was an era where the desire for a perfect mane led to the application of potent poisons and highly flammable substances, all in the name of societal expectation and an often unreachable standard. It's a chilling reminder that beauty standards, and when taken to extremes, can be truly dangerous. and that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can be is simply healthy, with your own natural hair, whatever its texture or volume. Sweet dreams, and may your own hair always be healthy and fireproof. You've just navigated the shadowy world of Victorian quackery, witnessing how unscrupulous charlatans peddled dubious products and made persuasive, yet utterly false, promises of beauty. You felt the phantom sting of a galvanic device and the chilling thought of ingesting a miracle elixir filled with unknown dangers. But as the Victorian era drew to a close, and the bright, if sometimes naive, light of the 20th century began to dawn, the terrible legacy of these beauty treatments, surprisingly, contributed to a crucial shift in public health and consumer protection. Now, let's reflect on the enduring cost of beauty in this era, and how the very dangers you've explored inadvertently shaped our modern pursuit of perfection. You've just emerged from the oppressive dressing room, perhaps still smelling the faint, acrid scent of lead-laced hair tonics, or feeling the phantom itch of a scalp exposed to turpentine. You've glimpsed the terrifying lengths to which Victorian men and women would go to achieve lush, voluminous locks, risking poisoning and even fire. But the relentless pursuit of beauty in this era was a multifaceted beast, extending its reach to every curve and contour of your figure. Now, let's turn our attention to the ideal Victorian silhouette, the impossibly tiny waist and the voluminous skirts, and the often bizarre and dangerous methods used to achieve it. Corsets and concoctions that promised perfection but delivered only discomfort, restriction, or worse. Imagine yourself in the early 1900s. The gas lamps are slowly being replaced by electric lights, the horse-drawn carriages by motor cars. There's a new sense of optimism, a belief in scientific progress and the power of innovation. But the lingering effects of Victorian beauty treatments are still very real. You might see women with discolored skin from lead, hair loss from arsenic tonics, or persistent pain from tight lacing. The public, slowly but surely, is becoming aware of the hidden dangers lurking in those alluring bottles and jars. It's like the hangover after a very long, very dangerous party, and everyone is starting to realize just how bad the punch was. You find yourself in a private chamber, perhaps, or a lady's maid's room, the air thick with the scent of starched linen, whalebone, and the faint, sweet smell of desperation. You stand before a full-length mirror, scrutinizing your reflection, your natural figure, perhaps a little too robust for the prevailing fashion, seems to lack the desired hourglass shape. The ideal Victorian female silhouette was one of extreme curves, a tiny, almost wasp-like waist, a full bust, and wide, flowing hips, often accentuated by crinolines and bustles. This wasn't just an aesthetic preference, it was a deeply ingrained social code, a symbol of femininity, delicacy, and adherence to societal norms. A woman with a perfectly cinched waist was seen as disciplined, refined, and fashionable. So, the pursuit of this perfect figure became another obsession, a silent battle against the natural contours of the human body. This is where the true cost of beauty begins to manifest, not just for individuals, but for society as a whole. The cumulative effect of widespread exposure to toxic ingredients in cosmetics and patent medicines began to raise alarms. This is a common historical fact, the widespread use of dangerous ingredients like lead, mercury, arsenic, and later radium in beauty products and patent medicines led to a growing public outcry and eventually spurred the development of consumer protection laws in the early 20th century. Organizations like the American Medical Association AMA and various women's groups began to actively campaign against quackery and the deceptive advertising of dangerous products. They collected evidence of harm, exposed fraudulent claims, and lobbied for government regulation. It's like a very determined group of public health superheroes finally deciding to take on the villains of the beauty industry, armed with facts and a lot of very angry letters. This is where the infamous corset truly enters the scene. You might have seen images of them, elaborate garments made of stiffened fabric, often reinforced with whalebone or steel stays, designed to tightly cinch the torso. You would be laced into this garment, often by a maid, with a meticulousness that bordered on ritual. The maid would pull the laces tighter and tighter, your breath catching in your throat, your ribs protesting against the relentless compression. The goal was to achieve a waist circumference that was often shockingly small, sometimes as little as 16 to 18 inches. a feat that defied natural anatomy. It's like trying to squeeze a watermelon into a teacup. But the watermelon is your internal organs, and the teacup is a very unforgiving garment. You might read newspaper articles detailing the tragic stories of women who suffered from lead poisoning due to face creams, or who developed horrific cancers from radium-infused tonics. These stories, often sensationalized but rooted in grim reality, served as powerful wake-up calls. The public, once so eager to believe the promises of miracle cures, began to demand accountability. They wanted to know what was truly in their products, and they wanted assurance that those products were safe. It's like everyone suddenly realizing that the secret ingredient in their favorite snack was actually poison. Not exactly a delicious discovery, but the insidious nature of extreme tight lacing meant that the pursuit of this perfect figure came with a terrifying price. Corsets, when laced too tightly, could cause a host of severe health problems. You might immediately feel a crushing pressure on your ribs and internal organs. Your breathing would become shallow and restricted as your lungs struggled to fully expand. This could lead to fainting spells, lightheadedness, and chronic fatigue as your body struggled to get enough oxygen. Imagine trying to run a marathon while wearing a vice around your torso. Not exactly conducive to good health. The lack of government regulation in the Victorian era was a key factor in the proliferation of these dangerous practices. There were no laws requiring manufacturers to list ingredients, prove efficacy, or ensure safety. This allowed unscrupulous individuals to market dangerous and ineffective products with impunity. The secret formula was their selling point, but it was also their dangerous secret. It wasn't until the early 20th century, with the rise of consumer protection movements and more scientific understanding, that governments began to implement regulations to curb these dangerous practices. In the United States, for instance, the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 was a landmark piece of legislation that, while initially focused on food and drugs, laid the groundwork for future regulation of cosmetics. It's like the Wild West of beauty products finally got a sheriff, and he was not messing around. As the tight lacing continued over time, the long-term effects would become devastating. Your internal organs, your stomach, liver, and intestines could be displaced, shifting downwards and becoming compressed, leading to chronic digestive problems, constipation, and even organ damage. Your ribs could become deformed, bending inwards under the constant pressure, sometimes even overlapping, leading to permanent skeletal changes. Your back muscles, no longer needed to support your torso, could atrophy, leading to chronic back pain and a reliance on the corset for support. It's like trying to achieve a perfect hourglass figure by slowly crushing your own internal organs. Truly terrifying. Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about the enduring cost of beauty, the psychological trauma inflicted by these dangerous beauty standards and the deceptive practices of quackery often extended beyond the physical. Many women who suffered from disfigurement, chronic illness, or even mental health issues due to these treatments were often too ashamed to speak out. Fearing social ostracization or being blamed for their own suffering, they lived in silent agony, their lives irrevocably altered by their pursuit of an impossible ideal. This hidden suffering, often unrecorded in official medical histories, represents a profound and often overlooked aspect of the terrible cost of Victorian beauty. Imagine living with permanent scars or chronic pain, knowing you brought it upon yourself in the pursuit of a fleeting aesthetic, and feeling too ashamed to even seek help. It's a heartbreaking testament to the power of societal pressure. This is a common historical fact while corsets were a ubiquitous garment for Victorian women. Extreme tight lacing was a controversial practice, even in its own time, with many physicians warning of its dangers. Despite these warnings, the fashion ideal often trumped medical advice. The desire to conform, to be fashionable, to attract a suitable husband, often outweighed the very real health risks. It's like knowing that smoking is bad for you, but doing it anyway because it looks cool. The allure of fashion can be incredibly powerful, even when it's actively harming you. The rise of consumer advocacy groups, often led by women, played a crucial role in pushing for change. They understood the vulnerability of women to deceptive advertising and the dangers of unregulated products. They organized, they lobbied, and they demanded that manufacturers be held accountable. Their efforts, born from a deep concern for public health and safety, eventually led to the establishment of regulatory bodies and stricter laws governing the cosmetic and pharmaceutical industries. It's like a grassroots movement of very angry, very determined grandmothers finally deciding they've had enough of being poisoned by their face cream. And when grandmothers get angry, things tend to change. Now, for a unique and lesser-known detail about the pursuit of the perfect figure beyond corsets. Some Victorian women turned to internal aids or concoctions designed to suppress appetite and promote extreme thinness, sometimes even containing dangerous substances. These were often marketed as slimming pills or anti-fat remedies, while some might have contained relatively harmless ingredients like laxatives or diuretics, which could still cause dehydration and electrolyte imbalances. Others contained far more insidious substances. For instance, some slimming preparations were later found to contain tapeworm eggs. Yes, you heard that right. The idea was that the tapeworm would consume the food you ate, leading to rapid weight loss. Imagine deliberately ingesting tapeworm eggs to lose weight. You'd probably end up with severe abdominal pain, malnutrition, and a very unwelcome parasitic guest. It's a bit like trying to achieve a perfect figure by literally inviting a parasite to live inside you. Truly horrifying. The legacy of these terrible treatments is a complex one. On one hand, they represent a dark chapter in the history of beauty, a chilling reminder of the dangers of unregulated markets and the exploitation of human insecurities. On the other hand, the suffering caused by these practices inadvertently spurred crucial advancements in public health, consumer protection, and scientific understanding. The very absurdity and danger of these cures forced society to confront the need for greater transparency, safety, and ethical conduct in the beauty and medical industries. It's like a very painful, very necessary lesson that society had to learn the hard way. Other slimming concoctions might contain arsenic or strychnine, a highly toxic pesticide, in small, controlled doses, believed to boost metabolism or suppress appetite. These were incredibly dangerous, leading to the same horrific symptoms we discussed earlier: nausea, vomiting, organ damage, neurological problems, and eventually death. The pursuit of thinness, like the pursuit of paleness, often became a deadly gamble, played with unregulated and highly toxic substances. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the precise balance between individual agency and societal pressure in the adoption of these dangerous beauty treatments. Some scholars argue that women were not merely passive victims, but actively chose to use these products, driven by their own desires for beauty and social advancement. Even if they were unaware of the full risks, they emphasize the role of individual choice within the prevailing cultural context. Others contend that the immense societal pressure to conform to unattainable beauty standards, combined with the deceptive advertising and lack of information, severely limited women's agency, making them vulnerable to exploitation. They argue that the choices made were often desperate ones, driven by a system that offered few alternatives. It's like arguing whether someone is truly free to choose their path when all the roads lead to a slightly different version of the same dangerous destination. The answer, as always, is complex and deeply personal. The psychological toll of this relentless pursuit of an impossible ideal was immense. The constant discomfort of tight lacing, the shallow breathing, the digestive issues, and the fear of not conforming to societal beauty standards must have weighed heavily on Victorian women. They would endure the pain and the risk, all for the sake of achieving a figure that was both unnatural and potentially deadly. The pressure to appear delicate, fragile, and perfectly proportioned would drive them to desperate measures, risking their health and sometimes their lives, for a fleeting aesthetic. It was a silent, internal struggle, a constant battle against their own natural bodies and the insidious garments and concoctions they willingly embraced. You might also consider how the lessons learned from the Victorian era continue to resonate today. Even in our modern world, with all its scientific advancements and regulatory bodies, the pursuit of beauty can still lead to dangerous practices. Unregulated cosmetic procedures, questionable supplements, and deceptive marketing still exist, preying on insecurities and promising quick fixes. The constant pressure to conform to often unrealistic beauty standards, amplified by social media, continues to drive many to extreme measures. The terrible history of Victorian beauty treatments serves as a powerful cautionary tale. a reminder that vigilance, discernment, and a healthy skepticism are always necessary in the pursuit of perfection. The market for these dangerous figure-altering treatments was, like other Victorian beauty products, largely unregulated. Quack doctors, charlatans, and opportunistic entrepreneurs peddled these dangerous concoctions and extreme corsetry with impunity, promising miraculous results with no side effects. Advertisements, featuring alluring illustrations of women with impossibly tiny waists, graced the pages of newspapers and magazines, creating a powerful aspirational ideal. You'd read glowing testimonials from seemingly satisfied users, unaware of the insidious damage being done to their internal organs and their overall health. The lack of scientific understanding and the absence of regulatory bodies meant that the public was largely unaware of the dangers. Trusting the claims of manufacturers who prioritized profit over public health. It's like trusting a fitness guru who's secretly selling you poison and then wondering why your organs are failing. So, as the final whispers of Victorian beauty secrets fade into the comfortable hum of the night, and the last terrible cure is pondered, you can almost feel the weight of centuries of human desire, shaped by societal expectations and the relentless pursuit of an ideal. The enduring cost of beauty, etched in the scars and the suffering of those who came before, serves as a powerful reminder that true beauty lies not in a flawless complexion or a tiny waist, but in health, well-being, and the quiet confidence of embracing your natural self. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the true prevalence of extreme tight-lacing and the use of dangerous slimming aids. Some scholars argue that while these practices existed, they were perhaps less widespread than popular culture suggests, and that many women wore corsets for support and shaping rather than extreme constriction. They contend that the more severe health problems were likely limited to a smaller subset of women who pursued the most extreme ideals. Others argue that even moderate tight lacing could have had negative health consequences over time, and that the widespread availability of dangerous slimming concoctions points to a significant public health risk that was largely unrecognized. It's like arguing whether a popular diet trend is truly healthy, or if it's just causing long-term damage. The long-term effects of insidious practices are often harder to pinpoint and attribute, especially in an era without modern medical understanding and public health data. The soft glow of your screen begins to dim, the sounds of the ancient world gently receding. You feel the comfortable weight of your blanket, the gentle rhythm of your own breath. The stories of Victorian beauty, their desperate pursuits, their dangerous remedies, and the unexpected legacy they left behind. Now settle into the quiet corners of your mind. Let those images, those whispers from the past, drift and mingle with your dreams. There's a profound peace in understanding how even in the strangest of times, humanity found ways to strive, to learn, to endure. The history of beauty, with all its complexities, offers lessons that still resonate today, a quiet reminder of the strength within us all. Your journey through history is complete for tonight. You might also consider the role of social class in these beauty standards. While women of all classes wore corsets, the ability to achieve an extremely tiny waist often required the leisure time and financial resources to avoid manual labor and to purchase the most restrictive and often dangerous garments and slimming aids. This highlights the intersection of beauty standards and class distinctions, where the pursuit of an ideal figure was often a visible marker of social status,